required of the President under Article 132 of the Constitution, subsection 1A, that the President shall always address any newly elected members of the Parliament. In that view, my address today is based on the fact that the conversations that we are having here are contributions towards inactions and action of government, which is basically public policy. And therefore, my attitude today is going to be looking at what I think that were intrinsically good in those speeches, in that speech, and those were true for me. And then I will also address 3 other issues that I think that were good, but we can improve in terms of approach, a little bit rethinking the approach that the President did give. And then lastly, I will be able to look at 2 issues that I think that the President did inadequately address, but are critically important in the spirit of that function of addressing any newly elected Parliament. So, what were the 2 things that I found intrinsically good that I think as a House we should support? Number 1, in line 48 of the President's speech, the President did recognize that climate change is a serious emerging complexity in our country today that need to be addressed, and that climate change has hugely contributed to the issue of drought in Kenya. I do agree with Mr. President on this, and I think that as a House, we should spend more time enacting on policies that can be able to contribute to issues of global warming, 1, and this basically, as the President did talk about, the use of fossil fuels, which actually contribute to about 3/4 of greenhouse emissions, need to be addressed as a country. Number 2, I think it's critical that as a House, we look at issues of waste management and try to bring about and influence about policies that can lead to Kenya being a more circular economy. Number 3, I think it's also critical on the issue of climate change to look on how we can be able to deal with the issues of loss of biodiversity and constantly working together to put Kenya into the map of earning carbon credits. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in line 7 and 17 of his speech, the President did spend a lot of time talking about the need for us to be able to improve on accountability to the electorate. I do agree with the President on this because it is critical that we always recognize those people who put us into office. And therefore, people have spent so much time talking about the issue of having cabinet secretaries appearing before the House. I think that is an important thing that we can support. Standing Order number 267 does allow this House. It establishes the Rules and Procedures Committee that can be able to allow this House to explore the issues such as this, and then amend to allow cabinet secretaries to come to this House. On this floor, many people have argued using Article 153, sub-Article 3, where cabinet secretaries are mostly required to appear before committees of the House. I think in the spirit of this accountability to the electorate, we should be able to explore Article 153, sub-Article 4b, which actually does require the cabinet to be able to furnish such a House with full report regularly. And in that article, the House is Parliament. And therefore, with that article, we can actually be able to support President on this particular issue. Mr. Speaker, I think it is very critical that I now look at some of the issues that the President talked about that I think were good ideas, very well intended, especially looking at the bottom part of the pyramid in our country. But I think that some of these issues can be improved in terms of approach. Number 1, the President did talk about the issue of improving savings for retirement for the people in the informal sector. I think these are critical issues. A few people have talked about the issue of